Okay.
Dominic Malone, hello and welcome to the podcast today, Actually Intelligent. You are the CEO and founder of Wellie, an AI startup in the wellness space. Thanks so much
Mhm.
for joining today. How are you?
Oh man, life is good. I'm feeling good. It's been a good day. Got to hang out with my sons before I came to work this morning, so that right there checks the box of a good day.
Awesome. I'm so happy to hear that. Here at Actually Intelligent, what we love to learn and talk about is how are people innovating? How are they using AI today? And
Mm,
so, when I was looking into and doing some research before you joined today with Welly, um, I was left very interested because I know you have a background in kind of more of it's called a rise wellness, more of kind of like a spiritual type of wellness practice.
mhm.
And so I'm just really curious if, in your own words, you could tell us a little bit about Welly and what it's about.
Yeah, easy, easy. Welly, we like to say it's a modern day oracle for well-being that can prevent and predict burnout in individuals and organizations before it happens. And we like to say it can stop people from crashing out and taking the wrong decision before they actually take the action.
Yeah. So, how did you come up with this idea?
Like you said, man, we've been running a company called Arise Wellness for maybe about 7 to 8 years, 7 to 6 years at this point. And we have a really big footprint in the education and organizational culture space. We know that a creative being is a well-being, somebody who's able to understand that you can create your thought patterns, you can create your behaviors, you can even create your habits.
Yeah.
So we take that truth and we step into organizations who are struggling. The struggle can oftentimes look like a CEO reaching out and saying, "Hey, I don't know why my team is at this level of distraction and this level of inability to get things done, but it's something." And I usually look at the CEO and I'm like, usually a CEO's life habits and patterns and ways of communication completely track down the rest of the organization. So, and we would consider those like an identity, an empowerment, well-being issues, and we track that. And then we have a set of solutions. We have something called 11 keys of well-being, and each one of those keys is a principle that you can hold on to and
Yeah.
to help you make better decisions. And when those principles are broken, they usually track to a maladaptive behavior that you don't want to see in your life.
Gotcha.
Hmm.
This tool is something where it is, people are asked to interact with it. I'm thinking a lot of kind of like HR tools, maybe back in the day. I'm not sure what's out there right now, where you fill out a little survey maybe at the end of the week of like, how are things going? How are things not going? I'm curious a little bit about how it works, if you're able to explain that.
Yeah, no, Welly is I've been this is a podcast on entrepreneurship too, so I could be a little less polished here. But we like to say it's like a wise friend. And I know using terms like friend and AI is like sticky in a negative way sometimes, but we think of it in the sense of the way you would communicate with somebody that you thought had good information and good intent over your life. That's the
Yeah.
way you communicate with Welly.
Okay.
You do so in a way where you can talk to Welly the way you can talk to yourself right now, and it can respond as dynamically as you would respond. You can chat with Welly like literal text, voice the text, input, output, things of that nature. And when you're doing that, Welly underneath it is sitting on top of the 11 keys of well-being as a framework. So it's analyzing the conversation based off your keywords and your sentiments in your voice if you're using voice or text.
Yeah.
And it says like, okay, this person falls in this bucket of one of the 11 keys. For example, it might be emotional alchemy, the ability for you to take a raw emotion and translate that power, that energy into a positive action. So if
Yeah.
you're referencing things like, I have no control, I'm so mad, I'm spiraling, I can't think of a way out. I just want to do something that's not, good to the workspace, my home, myself. Welly's like, oh, the principle of emotional alchemy is off, are missing in this conversation. And sometimes we hold principles and sometimes we don't. It's not like a one
Yeah.
size fits all thing. Sometimes I'm like amazing at being patient, and other days I'm just different.
Yep.
So
Yep.
yeah, so it's catching those little nuances in your communication and your storytelling about your reality, and then it's saying, okay, they're missing this key. Let's begin to have conversations that input the information that this key would hold in real time with their real time scenario that they're going through. So that's kind of how
Yeah.
Wellie works.
Okay. Yeah. And I'm curious within that space. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about how AI tools are somewhat sycophantic. They're going to be telling you the things you want to hear. They're a lot of like, absolutely, this is a great idea. Let's talk about it. Or they have, I mean, it comes up also like with how do kids interact with
Yeah,
AI, and it's like,
yeah,
oh yeah, your parents are like being harsh on you for asking you
yeah.
to do the dishes once a week. So I guess I'm curious, like as you're developing something, how do you, especially in a wellness space, how do you
Yeah,
develop something that isn't being like, oh yeah, your boss is a jerk, like
yeah, yeah. um, I think I know because of what the 11 keys of well-being do for a
yeah,
person. Um, if your perception of whatever you're going through sits outside of these keys, then it's not going to tell you that it's not. You know, uh,
yeah,
uh, unlike some uh, AI platforms or services, we made sure Welly wasn't a echo chamber. Like I
yeah,
didn't. I was like, yo, in real life, when you go to this is why I say wise friend, because when you go to a good
yeah,
friend and you say some ridiculous off the wall stuff, they're gonna look at you and say, "All right, listen, I know it was a rough day, but like, is that the direction you really want to go?" And Welly
yeah,
has in his systems control and in his personality, there's particular lines of instruction where like you're not here to agree on everything, but you're
yeah.
not here to disagree in a way where it makes somebody feel stupid. You know,
That makes sense.
be
Yeah,
honest and say, hey, this is what you're going through. Is there another way of thinking about this? Here's a principle you can put in place. Here's an action you can take to think about this a little more effectively in a way that won't uh, negatively impact your reality post action.
yeah. Okay, yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, but
I was listening to a podcast this weekend, and they were talking about. I'm like, they're so right. Like all the AI tools are so sycophantic. And then I was looking at how you guys were kind of describing Welly, and I saw Oracle, and I was like, oh, I like that because it's there has to be something in there with that. So I
yeah,
like that.
no, agreed, man. We spend a lot of time with many different kinds of people who are going through different levels of struggle. Some are doing really well and just struggling in one part. Some are doing not so well, and life as a whole feels off to them. But the
Yeah,
last thing that we do when we're in person with people, this is a difference too, I think, between our development of technology and maybe others. I'll finish what I was going to say first, and I'll put a pin in that. But there's a reality of learning how to develop people when you've done this work for so long in front of different kinds of people, and
yeah,
then to take that lived experience and all those wins and sometimes not wins and learn from it and then put them into an artificial intelligence that's backed with that level of training. You're like, oh, okay, like I would never get in front of a client in real life and tell them, and they say, oh, my boss wrote me up because I was late, they suck. I'm like, I would say like, well, how can you be on time, like, or is there another let's be honest about that. Like you didn't get written up for no reason.
exactly, exactly. Yeah,
So like why what makes waking up feel like you can't do that on time?
yeah.
What are you prioritizing over, making things true that you said would be your responsibilities?
Yeah. So it's more holding people accountable for themselves and helping, like almost being like you've already said, a good friend who's able to relay something back to you and help maybe even instill that confidence so that the next time you're feeling that way, you have
Yeah.
the tools to get out of it.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think the part that I like particularly really love about Welly is like there's a content engine, we call it, and it, as you're talking about things, it's pulling in content from our wheelhouse of content from Arise Wellness.
Oh,
So it's
yeah.
like if you're like my lady, she's a singer songwriter, and she made a global acclaimed album called Mantra Loops Volume One and Two, and it's music that was created to help people reprogram their internal dialogue if it was a negative. So
Okay.
so
Yeah.
so let's say you are in a spiral of like, I'm not good enough. I just feel like, why do I deserve these opportunities and other people don't? Then it's gonna populate a song for you underneath this response that says, suggested content is the song is gonna be More Than Enough by Jim and L. So
Yeah.
there's ways in which we thought about bringing the real world into the digital world when you can take art and content and people's gifts and say this relates to the gap you're feeling right now to help you bridge it beyond talking to this to Wellie. Let's go ahead and give you something you can listen to, jam to, have a good time with, stuff like that.
Yeah. And giving you real things from like the physical world than just within the computer space that I think maybe a
Yeah,
lot of us have become accustomed to,
100%, man.
or become more accustomed to. Yeah.
And I love that you said that too. And if you don't mind me
No,
talking on
go for
that,
it.
I love that you said that too, because I think about, we've been having Wellie tested. We have a few clients, and I'm like, before we do this massive big launch, like, what does it mean to put something like this into a community I actually care about? Like, I actually really care about the people who will touch Wellie. So in
Yeah.
thinking about that, I wouldn't want my friend or my child or my auntie to only be talking to AI, you know?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so I think about that in the sense of how do we activate a branding, a marketing, a launch campaign. And it's like we have been really successful in what we've done in business because of our physical activations, because of the
Right.
things we do in real life. And I've been thinking like Dom, don't lose that side of yourself as you become known in this tech world. Like continue the physical activations paired with the technology that can be there when you can't be there for people.
Yeah. I really like how you put that.
Yeah.
And I want to shift you just a little bit because you
Yeah.
had mentioned these like your 12 pillars that you have built in there. Would you be able to share what those 12 pillars are?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I'd
So
love to hear more
so
about that.
I'll share a couple of them because it gets a little lengthy. And there's we
Yeah.
call them the 11 keys of well-being. Um, we have the creator principle, which says that you innately, as a human being, have the ability to create the reality around you and the perception of that reality around you. That principle is at the top of the totem pole of principles because if you know that and can remember that, then you get less stuck in the fleeting emotions. Oh, I am, some people say I am depressed right now. I'm depressed. And I would say you're depressed right now, but what are the things
Yeah.
that bring you joy? And in this
Mhm.
moment of depression, if we can reactivate your creative engine to go out and seek the things that bring you joy, then we can move out of that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. We would say inner versus outer reality. We believe and we know that what you hold on the inside, as far as your mindset, your core beliefs, and your thought patterns, all those things dictate the perception you have of the exterior world. For example, if I'm afraid of dogs because I got bit by a dog back, in seventh grade, if I saw that dog on your wall right there, I might be a little nervous. But that's an inside reality projecting onto an outside factor.
Yeah.
Uh, yes. And then we have one of the ones I really love is Earth as a teaching ground. Like you so I love that because it reminds us that everything that we're going through is meant to teach us something. Without friction and without resistance, you don't grow muscle. So it's like
Hmm.
everything that if we can remember that everything we go through in some shape or form has the ability to grow us. I think about I lost two brothers in the last 5 years and it was a very difficult thing for me both times. But what helped me not stay in that rut forever was that last principle, like
Yeah.
earth as a learning ground. I'm like, I understood that, okay, there's something to learn from this, there's something to gain from death, and there's something to gain from life. So
Yeah.
in my life, what can I gain from death, and I was able to, some of the principles I put in place in my life today, which is spending like quality time with people over everything, it came from those passings, so
Yeah.
yeah. So those are some of the principles that I'll share with you, but there's like 11 more, but
Yeah.
there's 11 total, but that's it. Mhm.
I'm sorry for your loss, and I appreciate you
Thank
sharing
you.
that with me. You were talking about kind of those outward experiences, and how do you deal with those both outside and inside? And I think,
Yeah.
for me personally, I've had to deal with depression before and things like that, and I definitely agree that this is just something that it may always be there, but you're going to have those ups and downs. And by practicing like gratitude, being by taking an opportunity to think about what are those things that are going to help you feel better and just feel more in yourself, are great tools to help manage those types of emotions and feelings.
Yeah, agree. And that's and those are the matrix of ideas that Welly is processing information through. That is the
Yeah.
filter. So unlike um I have a lot of respect for ChatGPT. I really do. And
Yeah.
we actually use some of their APIs in our system to be able to understand language. So I have massive respect for what they built. At the same time, I understand that um, it can be a bit of a sound chamber sometimes, and it's just repeating back to you what you want to hear.
Yeah.
And that can be really confidence boosting sometimes if you're lacking confidence in the idea, and it's like, no, you got this. This is good. But at the same time, if you're doing that with an emotional state of mind against some ideas that are not so healthy for a person, that could get real dangerous, man. And it has gotten
Yeah.
real dangerous. And
Yes.
not to try to throw shade at them or anything, but I think without you know I mm, I know we're going to go here, but I'm going to just go. I'm just going to go here. All
That's
right.
yeah.
I think one thing I love about living in America is access to the cutting edge of things.
Yeah.
One thing I know about US culture is that in order to rise here, sometimes you have to adopt the culture and the identity of an American, which is not a bad thing. But I've noticed that we oftentimes negate the information that comes from other cultures, especially ancestral or older cultures, or even cultures that are not European or Western. And
Yeah.
thinking about that, there's a lot of information that was passed down through the other civilizations about how to build a culture that is well. In America right now, we are going through one of the greatest depressions we have ever seen. It's not an economic depression, it's a mental health, it's an emotional depression. And I think we have to look back at the culture that we were raised within and we were developed in within the society, and look at other cultures and say, how did they maintain for millennial without having documented this level of psychological, emotional, and spiritual depression in a society? And we have to go back and look at things like that. So, as beautiful as it is living in where we are, beautiful and grateful, we have to look at other cultures who may have things that we don't have and say, what's really going on here, and how can we adapt? And I think Welly does a really good job that very intentionally of looking at we call it we say ancient code from modern technology. There,
I like that. I like
yeah,
that.
thank you. There's ancient codes for how to raise humans and how to develop civilizations and how to have well societies, and we can put those and place those into modern technology, so it really helps us out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost yeah, I could be completely wrong here, but like, is it like it's? I mean, what it kind of sounds like you're describing is almost like this, at least within the context of it's this diversity of code, using kind of your language there too. It's because you're bringing in a bunch of different cultural kind of references and experiences to try and, I don't know, maybe melting pot isn't the right term, but to create something that is more broad than just a very like US or American centric view.
Yes, I would say I would agree. I would use one more. I would use just a different
Yeah.
verb. I would use synthesize instead of like a melting of pots. You know, I
Yeah.
think if you were to really look at from modern cultures to antiquity, you will see there's a lot of consistency around how to morally raise a human being and how to morally and ethically set up a society. You know,
Yeah.
and sometimes we forget those things, you know. So I would say yes, um, you can find those principles in many cultures,
Yeah.
ancient and modern, but we've put them in a system that we call the 11 keys of well-being, that we love to help people take people from living life unintentionally to living life intentionally, and then living life as a creative being where you can create the internal world that reflects into the external world.
Yeah. I love it.
Thank you.
When it comes to what you actually, I want to do something a little different here as we
Okay.
kind of wrap up. What I like to do is I like to ask, like, in your personal life, like, how are you using AI today, and what have been some of like your favorite use cases for it,
Yeah.
if there are any?
Yeah, no, you know, it's so funny you ask this. ChatGPT took a great principle or idea from Spotify and did like your daily wrap up. You know, like Spotify's
Yes.
like your like yearly wrap, what you're doing, stuff like that. And Spotify, ChatGPT had one too, like how do you use ChatGPT? I thought it was so brilliant. Um, it said you use ChatGPT, or we say AI at this moment, for as a strategist. You use it in the
Mm.
sense of you use it for developing your strategy further. And that's exactly how I use it. I believe we all came here with a gift, with a destiny, and we get constant divine downloads. We call them like intuition, or we call them like I got this spark of idea, and we get those often. When I get those ideas, I use AI as um, an expansion of how to bring those thoughts to reality. So, for
Mm.
example, the MVP of Wellie was created with a low code, no code program. I don't have the ability to write code, but I can instruct an AI system to write code. And then we went out and fundraised, and we were able to hire a dev team and UX, UI person, etc. But I use AI as like a second brain to my own original ideas.
Yeah.
I'm saying, yo, I have this idea intuitively. I feel like I'm really supposed to bring this to the world. Um, what am I missing from my game plan that would make this actually come to truth, or come to reality? And then that's how I use ChatGPT, or how I use AI, or whatever I'm using. I actually use Welly. I use Welly to help me process things sometimes when I'm going through it, like my wife or my kids. I'm like, yo, I was kind of tripping today. Like,
Yeah.
like I'm thinking about it like this. Am I missing a piece? Am I misunderstanding? Because I live and hold those 11 keys of well-being, those principles very dear to me. I actually embody those. But there's moments where you're challenged beyond your own ability to command yourself. And you
Yeah.
got to step back and ask like what did I miss, and how can what's a practice I could use to bring that to the forefront so I don't do that again. So that's how I use AI in this point in time.
I love it. I'm curious if you have any tips for the people out there of like, how can I use AI as my second brain? How can, like, any
Yes.
tips on prompting or anything along those lines?
Yeah. Yo, I really love to record dialogue between people. If I'm talking to a friend or I'm talking to a business partner, I'll say, hey, can we record this conversation? And
Mhm.
I record the conversation, and now in your iPhone, at least over the last 2 years or year or so, you can copy paste a transcript of any voice note. So
Yeah.
I copy paste a transcript. I'll put it into a folder or into a chat, and I'll say, let's say if it's a sales call or a call where I'm advising, I do like a lot of advising, and a call where I'm advising, I'll say, hey, my goal for this advising conversation was to get this person to hear, get this leader to hear. I feel like I did a good job, but I really aim to be in the 1% of advisors, consultants in this field. What did I do right? And you guys sometimes ask, AI to tell you what they did wrong. What did I do wrong? And are
Yeah.
there any nuances I missed? And it'll literally, you did this great compared. Now, I think what the point that I will pull out there is that I gave it something to judge me against. Because right
Yeah.
now it's such a conglomerate of information, you don't know what is judging you against. So
Yeah.
I'm going to use my own barriers, my own markers that I find valuable. There's a book, multiple books by Alex Hormozy, $100 million offer, $100 million leads, et cetera, et cetera. So when I'm in my sales mode, I say, I had this sales call. Here's a transcript based against his ideas in his book. How did I do? And then I take that, I literally apply it the next time I have a conversation. So I'm
Yeah.
like learning and applying until it becomes just natural to me. So that's how I use it. That's how
I
I
like
advise
that.
people to use it too.
I like that. Yeah. You're grounding basically everything you're asking the AI within a reality that you are familiar with.
That I'm,
Uh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I think it's
Yeah.
important because I think oh, I don't want to talk mess, but I think one day we'll look back at AI and the companies that were built around generative AI, and we may consider it one of the biggest thefts in the world. I
Yeah.
think I use it, right. So this is not me throwing it and not look at
No,
myself,
I get it.
but the world's information was taken and put into a singular system.
Yeah.
But you just don't know what piece of that world is using to judge you, and you don't
Yeah.
agree with all. I don't agree with everybody's principles, so I need to give a principle that I agree with and then say judge me off that.
Right. Right. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great place to stop. Thank you so
Mm-hmm.
much, Tom, for joining today and
Yes,
taking the
yes.
time.